As I'm thinking about, again, the advice that you're giving right now to clients, I know you've been incredibly busy in these last few weeks, and it's, with the inquiries of clients and how they're thinking about systems and teams, and really beginning to think about how do we continue to build our professional development and our human growth and our talent development. How do we do this? How do we prepare and plan and anticipate the things that we're going to need to grow and prosper in spite of distress? Because while it's this pandemic now, I suspect that our brains are tuning that there will be other breakdowns or other distress in the future. So what advice are you giving to people not to miss this? Because this is great training ground where we don't have to waste any of this experience. So as you're thinking about the advice you're giving, it would be great to hear some of that wisdom. And again, for our audience to begin to incorporate some of the benefit of that, should they be in a conversation with you similarly.
Yeah, it's an interesting moment. Part of what I'm sort of known for working with clients around is helping them to navigate, disruptive moments, right, and seasons of transition. I've been having a lot of conversations with both clients. I also serve on a couple of boards of nonprofit or national nonprofits, and helping them think about, what has to happen in this moment. And I'm going to reference an article that was written by some colleagues of mine. It's about, I think it was called Leading in the Blizzard, I think was the title of the article, by Andy Crouch and Dave Blanchard and Kirk Heilhecker. And the metaphor that they used, which I think is really powerful, is that we're currently in a blizzard, right? And the snow's coming down, it's piling up. We might have anticipated the blizzard, but most of us really didn't. And so how do we, manage and navigate through the blizzard? But then based on what we're seeing, we're going to head into a long season of winter, right? And so winter's coming, it's here, the blizzard has started it, and we may get more blizzards along the way, but we have this long season of winter. And then the third piece of their metaphor was, could we, economically certainly, and relationally, could we be entering into a longer time of cold that they call the Ice Age? And so we have the blizzard, the winter, and the Ice Age. And, if we wanted to put time constraints around that, I can't remember exactly what theirs were, but I developed a framework that I've around this metaphor. If the blizzard is, now for the next 6 weeks, let's say till the end of April or into May, what do we have to do in that time period? If the winter is, between now and the end of the year, or a year, make a 9 to 12 month period. And then if an Ice Age is, they're calling it a mini Ice Age. I don't even know what that means, but 3 years, right? Because there is real concern about this skidding the entire global economy into not just a recession, but potentially a depression. I was listening to the news this morning. The unemployment numbers are starting to come out. I mean, it's ugly, right? It's brutal, and it's not going to get better anytime soon. And so what does it look like to begin to think in those kinds of time blocks? If we're only reacting and responding, which is what you do in a blizzard, right? Like, make sure we have enough toilet paper. Well, the country took care of that, right? Those kinds of things, those behaviors and those ways of moving are not going to serve us over longer periods of time. And so what opportunity does this create for us to step back and examine, one, who we really are, what really matters most to us? For most organizations, this would be called your purpose, your guiding purpose or mission or vision, whatever language you use, and your core values. And then through that grid, how do we want to be moving in this season? And that has implications. The way I broke it down in the framework that I've shared with a couple people is that has financial implications, it has operational implications, it has strategic implications, it has personnel implications, and it has vision or purpose implications. And if you kind of look at, what does it mean in the short term, the medium term, and the long term for us, and I wouldn't even start with the long term right now. I just do short term and medium term. And based on who we say we are, where are the opportunities? And I think that's where you begin to see people moving into the innovation space. the reality is some organizations aren't going to survive this. It's hard and it feels sad and painful, but many will in new ways if they're willing to create the space to try some new things. And this is where we begin to step into the work of this idea of complexity science and the learning that I've had and how I've seen that begin to play out in organizational life.
Yeah. So again, just so that folks that are listening, you said, once you sort of reestablish who you are and what you stand for, what matters most, then you said you press it through the grid. So can you repeat the grid again? So if you look at time horizons of near end, blizzard, and the winter between now and the balance of the year, what are the areas that people should be looking at then?
Well, I think there are 4 or 5 buckets that every organization is paying attention to. So, it's long-term vision, or where the opportunity is, it should be in there. Certainly strategies. What strategies are we currently executing on? Are they working? Do we need to adjust them? What are the implications of that for the short term? Operationally, and operationally can have to do with your people, your physical space, all the various aspects of running an operation. And then, financially, I think we have to look at financially the implications of this. In the short term, does that mean laying people off? Does it mean taking salary cuts? And then how do we sustain that over time? So I think, those would be the 4 or 5 big buckets I'd look at. The temptation is going to be to look at financial first. And I think you have to, right? In some cases, you got to staunch the bleeding, right? If there's, if your business has dried up or slowed down significantly, I was with a CEO who has got 3 different business lines running. One of them is not going to happen right now. And so he made the hard decision of letting a small team of people go on Friday so that he can put his energy into the business line that he knows has the most potential. Very painful decision. He's invested a lot in this business. He said, I believe it'll come back again. That's just, now's not the time. Right. So those are all hard decisions. But don't make the financial decisions in a vacuum is part of what I would say too.